All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar this morning. Again, my name is Jason Flynn, and I am the Director of Human Resources and Client Services for Prestige Employee Administrators. Along with me this morning again is Carol Sawyer, who's our tax manager. And joining us for the first time is Kathleen Sullivan, who is our Associate Director of Benefits here at Prestige. So, as we get into it, with each week that passes, new information and updates continue to come out. I'm sure you're no stranger to all the emails and webinars and information that's funneled your way. But we also wanted to provide everyone with some guidance on how to help employees dealing with this pandemic. So the webinar this morning is going to revolve around those supporting programs, but also touch on some items that we feel can help you as employers. As for today's agenda, Carol will be taking everyone through some updates to the employer FICA tax deferral program, and then discussing the economic injury disaster loan, which we know has been a hot button over the past few days, if not week. Then we'll get into some employee guidance. I'll be talking about the Employee Assistance Program through National EAP, and Kathleen is going to take you through the telehealth program we have in place, which makes it easier for employees to connect with healthcare providers remotely. As a reminder, all participants will be muted throughout the webinar. However, if you do have a question, I urge you to use the Q&A feature within the webinar and direct the question to the panelists. We will do our best to answer all the incoming questions. And if you're looking for the slideshow of the presentation after this webinar, it will be uploaded to our website that you can direct yourselves towards to view and download the slide deck here. At this point, I'd like to pass control over to Carol Sawyer, who will take it from here.
Thank you very much, Jason. All right, the first thing I want to talk about today is the FICA tax deferral, which we have discussed a little bit prior to now, but we didn't have a whole lot of details, let alone a process within Prestige. Businesses that have applied for or received your PPP loan are eligible for the employer FICA tax deferral. When you have your loan forgiven is when the tax deferral will end. So you may defer the employer share of FICA during your 8-week covered period as you begin to receive your loan proceeds. When the loan is forgiven, the deferral ends, and that amount, and this is where the change comes in, that we just received new guidance from the SBA. At that point in time, the amount that's been deferred does not need to be paid until the dates in the CARES Act. So half would be due at 50% on December 31st, 2021, and the remaining 2022. So that's a real change. We had originally been told that once the loan was forgiven, you had to repay that debt immediately, and that has been changed to make it easier. Now, we do have a process here at Prestige. The owner or an officer of the company needs to email either your payroll specialist or your human resources business partner to elect into that program to have your FICA taxes deferred. We ask that it be an owner or an officer because you are now entering into a debt. And depending on the size of your company, this could be a sizable debt at the end of the year that will need to be paid in the years to come. Next slide. There is a second product that has always been available through the SBA, but has been changed a little bit with the CARES Act, and that is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, also called an EIDL. The similarity to the PPP loan that this loan has is you must have less than 500 employees. That's where the similarities end. As I said, the EIDL has always been around to help small businesses that are struggling. The change has been is you can request an emergency grant advance, loan advance, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different terms being used from the SBA. There's a box to check on the application. The loan advance is set at $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. And this grant is automatically forgiven. You do not need to show how you paid, what you used the funds for. It is an automatically forgiven grant. This loan is typically used for working capital needs, other expenses that you have other than just payroll. Next slide. This loan, should you be approved, is a 30-year term loan. The interest rate, fairly reasonable, 3.75 for businesses, slightly less for the nonprofits. Now, the process for this loan is different. You do not apply with a bank directly for this. There is an application through SBA. The link is provided here in the slide. The slide deck will be posted on our website to give you a click-through to be able to get to that. That's where you apply through the loan, apply for the loan. I took a look in the beginning. It's a very easy step-by-step process that you go through. You can apply for both loans, both the EIDL and the PPP. As we know, as we've covered with the PPP loans, they only take into account payroll, rent, and utilities, and really limits that only 25% of the loan proceeds be spent on something other than payroll. As a business owner, you know that your working capital and your other expenses are more than that. And so that's where the EIDL can help you keep going. If you do get both loans, and you do get a loan forgiveness on the PPP loan, whatever grant you got under the EIDL will be deducted from that forgiveness. Basically, the federal government is willing to give you one lump sum, not two sums. So that is the way this is handled. As for Prestige, you really don't need any specific information from us to apply for this loan. This is a very straightforward small business loan to help your company keep going, but we are always here to answer any questions you might have. And that ends the part of this presentation, and I will turn it back over to Jason.
Thank you, Carol. So, EAP, or National EAP. What I'd like to get into right now is some, assistance programs that we can use, or you can, as employers, can utilize for employees to really help their productivity and, more importantly, just help support them through this difficult time. The one thing that I'm going to discuss before I pass it off to Kathleen is going to be EAP. So, for those unfamiliar with EAP programs, these are employee assistance programs designed to provide a confidential resource for employees that are struggling with matters that could interfere with their work performance. Clearly, we're going through something pretty crazy right now that I would imagine could be affecting employees' work performance and productivity. So with an EAP, they typically tend to be around, around the clock types of support systems that can be instrumental in helping employees with a variety of work and personal problems. National EAP is a longtime partner of Prestige that employs master-level clinicians that, again, are available 24/7 every day of the year, and this is to help minimize potential liabilities and risks while also maximizing the productivity of your employees, which is something that should always be in our minds. So I'm sure it's not foreign to everybody on the call today that many employees could struggle with a variety of life issues that they bring to the workplace every day. And this can certainly affect the output that they're doing. Some of the common issues that we see that employees can reach out to these EAP specialists for would be anything from financial stress, anxiety, grief, substance abuse, marital situations, and obviously there's a lot more that come into play that employees can lean on these specialists for. Now, while this is an additional service that employees can pay for, it's important to note that there would be no fees for the employees who utilize the program. Many businesses implement employee assistance programs so their employees have easy access to a confidential, no-cost assistance program that offers a truly diverse range of solutions to support the employee back to a place where they're healthy and productive. So what's involved in EAP? What types of things can I see when I'm using this program? Well, the core program for National EAP is truly a well-rounded solution that employers can provide to their employees that include a lot of the work-life services that you see on this slide. Now, there's quite a few that are involved in the program. We've highlighted a few that you see on this slide today that we typically see a bit more often than the others. So we'll start with financial consultations. This service provides employees with confidential counseling sessions addressing an employee's specific concerns that would result in a written plan of action that employees can use going forward on that timeline to become more productive. Next would be child and elder care. This is a service that's designed for members that are seeking assistance with child or elder care issues. Members can call the National EAP directly, or they can log on to their member website to search for qualified referrals to experts in their area. Lastly, on this slide, we have legal consultation. This is a service that offers face-to-face consultations with attorneys at a lower rate, usually around a 25% reduction. So those are three that I wanted to highlight today, but as I mentioned, there are many more services included in this program that are designed to assist your employees' mental health and well-being. So naturally, you're going to want to know how this is going to benefit from your organization. So for employers, and I'm sure this is no secret, we all know that employees are the backbone of your business. They are your most valuable asset. There's not much we can do if you don't have them, or they're not effective or engaged. So when employees are happy and focused, as we know, productivity and motivation will usually increase as well. To help obtain this, the EAP program provides guidance to organizations to help work through employees' work performance and behavior issues. As mentioned earlier, their experts are available 24/7 each day of the year for an individual or an organizational crisis. As an employer, you can certainly refer high-risk employees for different types of counseling and monitoring with the idea of addressing their performance issues. An EAP program can also offer on-site critical response or online seminars for a variety of important topics. This is something that we work a lot with our clients who utilize this program, and a lot of the benefits that I see that come from the EAP program are usually on a one-to-one basis from an employee who reaches out to the Employee Assistance Program, or even from an organizational perspective. These EAP specialists can truly tackle a lot of different situations from an organizational perspective, through meetings, through setting up that structure. And the feedback we've gotten is extremely favorable. So let's get into the today, right? How is EAP handling the coronavirus outbreak? So there's a number of things that they have implemented to help organizations and their employees work through the stress of the recent pandemic, and how their lives have truly changed. All of our lives have changed as a result of this outbreak. EAP certainly has been committed to remaining operational 24/7, which is different from a lot of organizations that don't have that capability. But since we're dealing with improving the mental wellness of our employees and supporting, it's important that they are available at all points of day and night. Daily webinars and virtual support groups have been set up to discuss many topics such as self-care, resiliency, trauma reactions, leadership, stress management, but of course, managing working from home as well, and that's a big one. The idea that EAP is really trying to drive home is boosting morale with employees while we're all in uncharted waters. The additional support that they've put in place will remain in effect until the crisis has eased up. So if there's one thing that I can add to this, I feel that EAP, Employee Assistance Programs, is a truly great low-cost solution to offer your employees, honestly, during any time. But with what we're going through at the current moment, you can really help change an employee's life. This can really help them become more productive, boost their morale, help them get through situations that none of us have truly had to face in the past. And ultimately, that's going to help your organization and your productivity. So if you do have any additional questions about what I've spoken about with respect to employee assistance programs and national EAP, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to provide answers to any questions you might have and provide more details to this type of setup. So that wraps up the EAP portion of this webinar, and I am going to pass things over to Kathleen Sullivan.
Hi, this is Kathleen Sullivan. I'm the Associate Director of Benefits here at PrestigePEO, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes about telehealth and the options available to insureds through the medical insurance carriers that Prestige sponsors, United Healthcare, Oxford, and Emblem Health. I'm also going to touch base on an available emotional support line that everyone has access to. Okay, so telehealth. Telehealth is how members connect with healthcare providers through telecommunication technologies. Due to COVID-19 and the challenges for all of us with social distancing, healthcare providers and insurance carriers have expanded access to care, support, and resources for insureds. First carrier I'm going to talk about is United Healthcare. So with United Healthcare, virtual visits are part of your current plan. With United Healthcare, insureds have access to Amwell, Doctor on Demand, and Teledoc. You only need your ID number and to identify that you are covered with United Healthcare. In addition to the virtual visits that are always part of your plan, United Healthcare expanded provider telehealth access so employees can see their own doctors. So with the expanded provider telehealth access, an insured can visit their own physician through virtual care, live video conferencing from their home. This is not just for questions for COVID-19. This can be for any care that insured needs, medical care. It can be maintenance. It can be anything that you can see a doctor for where a virtual visit will work for you. This expansion with virtual visits to see your own doctor through United Healthcare is in place until the end of June. Okay, next. Oxford. So Oxford now has contracted with Amwell Health for telehealth virtual visits. This is new for Oxford, so this was not an option that you had before, but they put it in place due to COVID-19. For this, in order for you to access this, you do need to log in to your member portal at Oxford and go to COVID-19 section. There you'll get a code, and that's the code you're going to use when you log into Amwell in order to access those services for Teledoc. Oxford also expanded provider telehealth access. Again, same as United Healthcare, this is for insureds so they can access and be treated by their own physicians for care they need while we're all practicing social distancing. Member costs for COVID-19 related visits, diagnosis, treatment, those are all waived. Emblem Health, the last carrier we're going to talk about, they put some things in place as well. Emblem Health has a 24/7 nurse hotline that's available all the time for insureds through Emblem Health, where they can call and discuss their whatever's going on with them and get advice and help with healthcare decisions. There's a 877 number that you see on the screen, free of charge. Emblem also specifically set up visits for COVID-19 through Advantage Care physicians and Bronx docs. So patients experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, they can call the phone numbers that you see below and schedule an appointment. They'll have to answer some questions, but this is specific for COVID-19. Next. Emblem Health also has Teledoc available 24/7 with board-certified doctors for anybody to call who's covered on the Emblem plans. Same as the Oxford plans, they just use Teledoc instead of Amwell. And they have access to that 800 number to call in English, Spanish, or Chinese. Emblem also expanded their coverage to see your own doctor, professional care from your own doctors from your home. While we're going through this, they did not put a time limit on their plan right now, but it is in place, and you can be treated by your own doctor for medical services other than COVID-19. Okay, so those are the options that you have with your insurance carriers through Prestige for telehealth options. The last thing I want to talk about is this emotional support line. Things are tough today for everybody, so all employees have access to this emotional support hotline. Doesn't matter if they're insured with UnitedHealthcare, Oxford, or Emblem. This is just an option for employees to call if they're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Same as Jason talked about with the AP, this is a nice option for employees. I hope this information was helpful. I'm going to pass the program back to Jason and Carol now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, and just to, I guess, expound on that a bit, we spend so much time in these webinars talking about, federal leave programs, loans, how to help the organization, and this is all extremely crucial, vital, important details. Absolutely. But I think it's important that we take some time today to talk about some other areas where we can help our, as I mentioned earlier, our most valuable asset, which are our employees. And programs like employee assistance, EAP, and telehealth are two very easy things that we can do to help provide that support to our employees. Because at some point, a lot of these employees are going to return, and I think everybody's going to be changed from this. So anything that we can do to help our employees become more productive and more engaged within the workplace are conversations that we feel are worthy to have. So what we're going to do now is we're going to wrap up by going through some frequently asked questions. I figured we'd switch it up this time, and I will ask the questions while you can hear the wonderful answers provided by our one and only Carol Sawyer. So we're going to go through those right now. All right, Carol, I'm going to start. As an employer, should I submit a second application for the PPP if I have not heard back from my lender yet?
The answer to this is no, Jason. Submitting a second application, applying through a different bank, it's just going to muddy up the system and could actually delay your approval. Stay in contact with your lender. We are actually hearing back from some of Prestige clients that have started to receive their funding for these loans. So I suggest you speak directly to the bank you first applied with.
All right. When will the employer receive the loan money from the PPP application?
The CARES Act designated that the loan should be dispersed within 10 days after the approval by SBA. And as evidenced by the fact, as I said, some of our clients are receiving their loan proceeds, the banks are following that.
The PPP calculation for payroll figures. Do we include Medicare and Social Security matching employer taxes? If the answer is yes, then am I also able to apply for the payroll retention credit?
First of all, the PPP loan calculation amount, the monthly average payroll cost, did not include Medicare and Social Security matching employer taxes. That was a guideline that was set up by SBA to have it left out. The PPP loan and the employee retention tax credit are two separate systems that the aim is to retain your employees. Either borrow the money under the PPP loan and get forgiveness to pay your employees, or in absence of that, use the employee retention tax credit. If you get the loan, you cannot use the employee retention tax credit.
All right. Next question we have here is, we submitted the estimated payroll average for 2019 payroll, but now can we use the recent 12 months? Is this true?
It is. It was last-minute guidance that arrived last week, just before our Wednesday webinar, that indicated that you could use a 12-month period basically April 1, 2019 through March 31st, 2020. That report is available. Contact, again, either your payroll specialist or your human resource business partner, and they can put in the request to get that report to you.
Great. Next question would be for new businesses. Is the report from January 1st through February 29th, 2020?
That is correct, and that also leads into a question that'll be on the next page. Yes, businesses that just started in 2020, you didn't have any 2019 payroll, so the first 2 months of 2020 payroll, which was essentially before anyone felt the economic impact of the coronavirus, is used as your baseline for the loan.
All right. The time period for average monthly payroll costs can be January and February 2020 for new businesses, per the new SBA update?
Yes, as we spoke on the previous slide, this is not information that we had promoted that much because the majority of the clients here at Prestige have been in business for quite some time, and so the 2019 and pay periods applied.
All right. The next question looks like a twofer. So how do we determine the start date for the 8-week period regarding using the funds for loan forgiveness? And there seems to be some confusion as to whether the date we submit, the date our bank submits, or the date loan application is acknowledged by the end funder.
The 8-week covered period begins when you get the money. The purpose of this loan is for you to pay your employees, to rehire anybody who's been laid off, that you now have funds to pay. So that is when the 8-week period begins, is when you receive the funds.
All right, next question we have here is, do employers get a credit for health insurance contributions for employees out on either emergency FMLA or emergency paid sick leave?
There is. That was written into the CARES Act, that health insurance premiums related to the COVID emergency sick and family leave wages could also generate a tax credit. We're still developing a process for that. That tax credit can easily be applied in a later pay period once the system is in place to identify those costs for the employees that were out.
All right. What happens if I replaced an employee from 2019 with a different person with a lower salary in 2020?
There's a lot we don't know about the loan forgiveness process. There's limited information. It may reduce the forgiveness amount because the same job is being done by someone who's getting paid less than the person who did the job last year. That is the guidance we have at this point. We're not really sure how the SBA and the banks will require the information to specifically show that nobody's wages declined by more than 25%.
All right. This next question I can take, Carol. Our office is open, but employees didn't feel comfortable coming to work, meaning they're not sick, they're not taking care of sick families. They also don't want to use their 10 days of PTO. Should we still pay them? So as an employer, you are under no obligation to pay them in this scenario. Since they have the ability to work but are choosing to not come to work, that would be an unpaid situation, even a disciplinary situation. But to answer this question, you are under no obligation to pay them since they do have the ability to work but are choosing not to. All right, next question. I was with a different payroll provider for all of 2019, but with Prestige from January 2020 until current. Should I use the report from my previous payroll provider as well as the first quarter of 2020 from Prestige?
You have to pick 12 months, and chances are your previous payroll provider is providing you with a full 12-month report for 2019 to calculate your average cost. So that would work. If you wanted to look into using the 12 months ending March 31st, 2020, then yes, it would be the first quarter report from Prestige, but then you would need your previous provider to give you just the 9 months in 2019. So the answer to this question really depends on what you can get from your payroll provider that you had before Prestige.
Excellent. Next question is, how will the CARES Act and forgiveness of loan impact highly compensated executives/owners?
As was explained when we were preparing for the loans themselves, compensation paid to anyone is capped at $100,000 annualized. So the loan forgiveness paperwork that you will need to submit, anybody who is paid more than $100,000 on a yearly basis, the wages paid in the 8-week period will be limited accordingly when calculating the forgiveness.
Great. Next question, how do I apply for the PPP if I have 2 of my 6 employees able to continue to work?
I actually had the opportunity to speak with this client directly, which was kind of nice, and they did. They had 2 options. They could apply for the loan based on those 2 employees, knowing that those are the 2 employees that I need to work, and I will pay them with the loan proceeds and then get the forgiveness. But let's keep in mind, the purpose of this loan program is to get people back to work and to put more money in people's pockets. So the other plan would be is to apply for the loan using the average wages for all 6 employees, and then when you receive the loan proceeds, rehire the other 4 back and pay them in the interim. And yes, that means you could be paying somebody for not getting any work done. Federal government is all about getting money in people's pockets.
Correct. So this next question, I'm glad it's up here because we have been fielding a lot of questions around unemployment lately, clearly with everything that's going on. But the question is, how will it work when we have furloughed employees and they claim unemployment? How will they get the additional $600?
The additional $600 is automatically added in to anyone that files for unemployment now, as in recently being laid off, or anybody who had been unemployed in, say, January or early February that just lost their job for a variety of reasons. So everyone is getting that extra $600. The only time an extra step will be made is for a self-employed independent contractor that typically doesn't qualify for unemployment. I know in New York, it is a 2-step process. They have to apply for and be denied regular unemployment, and then they submit a second application for the pandemic unemployment, and then they will get regular unemployment plus the extra $600.
Fantastic. Next question. Can partners of an LLC that take income on K-1 apply for unemployment insurance?
Putting the pieces together that's in the CARES Act, the answer to this would be yes. A partner of an LLC is a self-employed individual. Their guaranteed payments were not included in the PPP loan application, so the only thing left for them is unemployment. I don't know of anyone yet who has tried that application process, but in theory, it should work.
All right. The next question asks, not knowing how long it will take to obtain the PPP loan, would it be best to furlough the 4 of my 6 employees that are currently unable to work while I continue to pursue the loan?
And that's a business decision, whether you want to possibly drain your savings paying those 4 people while you're waiting for the loan proceeds. Again, the loan proceeds can only be used for the payroll in the 8 weeks, not to refill your bank account because you've been paying people to keep money in their bank account even though they weren't doing any work. So if you do furlough them, if you do lay them off, you can rehire them as soon as you get those loan proceeds and pay them out of that.
Okay, the next question asks, how do I get a payroll calculation report of my existing employees? 2019 has a total of 38 on the report, but as of March 31st, 2020, we have 33 full-time employees.
There are 2 reports. There was the 12 months of 2019 and then the 12 months ending March 31st, 2020. So you can ask your payroll specialist or HRBP to get either of those reports for you, and that's the basis of the loan.
Great. Can we go back on our payrolls we submitted in the last several weeks to change the pay codes?
You cannot. The emergency paid sick leave and emergency family medical leave were effective April 1st, and that is the first time those pay codes can be used and get the corresponding tax credits that go with it.
Right. It's important to understand there is no retroactive. April 1st is a date. We've spoken about this a lot, so it's important that we know that moving forward. Next question is, Is the payroll tax credit applied through Prestige or through our accountant?
Oh, no, it will flow right through to the 941 that Prestige files on your behalf, and that is why you're getting an immediate credit on your invoice for all of these COVID sick pay codes that we have.
Great. Next question that came in is, asks, the 2019 Form 941 is required to submit with the PPP loan. What is being provided to us to submit to the bank for the Form 941?
Yes, our clients have been submitting the client allocation report, which can be run out of PrestigePEO, that is in a slightly different format than the monthly loan calculation report we gave you. And also, we have a PEO certification letter that explains the relationship, and that has been sufficient for the banks to process the applications.
Right, and just to piggyback off of that, I know that we've submitted a lot of reports to our clients, which include the client allocation report and everything that Carol mentioned. If you do find that you still need this information or haven't requested it yet, please reach out to your HR business partner or your payroll specialist. The support system that we have in place at Prestige can get this information to you and get it to you quickly. All right, the next question we have here is, how is forgiveness of the payroll portion of the loan calculated? Is the loan only based upon headcount? Or is there a payroll calculation from last year to this year when employees are hired back for the 8 weeks from the date of the loan origination?
Again, it's a complicated calculation. The coverage, the 8-week covered period begins when you get your loan amount. Over the next 8 weeks, they will look at the number of employees in that 8-week period and compare it to the same 8-week period in the previous year. So if you have had a decline in headcount, then the loan forgiveness will be reduced. Again, the loan was based on, say you had 8 employees last year. If you only had 6 during this period, there will be a reduction in the loan forgiveness. There is also the reduction caused by someone being paid a lower wage than they were during the same time period the previous year. And then again, which we haven't addressed, but I also want to point out, the loan proceeds, 75% have to be spent on payroll costs, benefits, those items that the loan amount was based on. The other 25% is the max that can be spent on rent, utilities, interest on other debt obligations, and those items that are eligible costs. So it's a complicated equation.
Okay. And this last question is very important that it gets its very own last slide. If employees take emergency paid sick leave or emergency family medical leave, how will that impact the loan forgiveness?
The wages paid for the emergency sick leaves and family medical leaves are not included in the calculation for loan forgiveness. So if you pay out, say, $4,000 in emergency paid sick leave to an employee during your 8-week covered period, that $4,000 will not be included because you got a tax credit on that money already.
Excellent.
That's it.
Thank you, Carol. So that wraps up the webinar. I definitely want to give a special thanks to Kathleen Sullivan and Carol Sawyer for joining me today and joining all of us. I want to thank everyone out there today for taking time out of their day to join us in this information for this update. As I've mentioned earlier, Prestige is certainly working tirelessly behind the scenes to help everyone through this difficult time, and we'll continue to provide the support that we always do. I urge you to continue to reach out to your support specialists, the HRBP's payroll specialists, benefit specialists, as well as compliance and retirement. We are here to help you and work with you to get through this. We are continuing to send out our weekly updates. And I'd be remiss if I did not direct everyone to our new website's online resource center that has everything that we talk about here, as well as this slideshow, which I have been informed is already up on our website. You can go visit the URL you see in that third bullet point on this webpage. And finally, also, please utilize the mobile app that we've rolled out to everybody. This mobile app will have your dedicated support team that you can refer to at any point in time. So thank you again for your time, everyone, and have a fantastic day.